fallout, smoke, women crying for their sons because their sons are not, Romans killing riotous groups that are rising up. Free Judea, free our people, autonomy for Israel. You had Herod, an Edomite, and his dynasty. Herod's ruling, killing any potential threat, any potential Messiah. Then you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees that we learn from Josephus are not Jews by birth. No.
Brothers and sisters, they are there. We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.
Let's go! All praises be to the Most High God. Yeah, I say it.
I was opportune to meet my grandparents, whom from childhood had always made us to understand that we are one of the lost tribes of Israel. One of the lost tribes of Israel. One of the lost tribes of Israel.
Okay, so now we are on our way from Ohafia to Arochukwu. So Ugo is traveling all around.
This is also an ancient city, the warriors.
Yeah.
They call it the Ephraimites.
Okay.
The Ephraimites.
Let me show you around.
Ephraim Queen. Yes, Ephraim Queen. Yeah.
Ephraim Queen. Yeah.
So they believe.
He said this particular place, they say that they're from the tribe of Ephraim.
Yeah, Ephraimites.
The Ephraim.
And ethnicity is a cult?
What's up, Zion Dynasty? This is your favorite dreaded Israelite, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. J.B. Zion. So family, this is going to be a purely academic lesson. This is going to be pure scholarship and teaching. So y'all take you some notes, write down some of these scriptures. We're going to do a Bible study, do a little genetic talk. And all of this is solidifying that history of us being connected to ancient Israel. Now, as you guys know, the Honorable Elder Teotw Ministries, the Honorable Elder Pastor Kelly, and the Honorable B'nai Israel, they did do a talk last night. And y'all, I wish I could have jumped on with them. But as you guys know, we had the live stream going on. Well, it was the lesson going on around the same time. I think it was both at 7:30. And I wanted to kind of interact with you guys on that lesson. And it just kind of conflicted because their live was going on at the same time. But hopefully I'm going to try to reach out to Teotw, and I want to be able to do something like that again where they kind of got on the panel. And we talk about the Ephraimite-Levirate marriage custom, which I didn't really see them highlight, and that kind of thing, and go into that. I am not denying that physically David's lineage is tied to Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, but because he is performing the rite of the Levirate, which goes back to the book of Leviticus, his whole duty was to raise up the name of his deceased kinsman, which is Elimelech. And Elimelech, the Bible says, is an Ephrathite, which I'm going to show you guys according to the Strong's Concordance, is a descendant of Ephraim, also an inhabitant of Bethlehem. Now, I'm going to break that definition down for you guys. Let me go ahead and pull that up. So in the Strong's Concordance, let's pull it up. So, in the Old Testament Hebrew Lexicon Dictionary, this is not the Strong's, this is the Old Testament Hebrew Lexicon Dictionary. It says the definition of Ephrathite, ashiness or fruitfulness. We know that Ephraim also means fruitfulness. And what is this talking about in reference to the scriptures? An inhabitant or descendant of Ephraim. So somebody that's within Ephraim's borders, or somebody that is just a descendant of Ephraim family. Now, we see this in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1, that Samuel, the prophet himself, was an Ephrathite, but he was from Mount Ephraim. Now, David is an Ephrathite or Ephraimite from Bethlehem, and this is why you see that inhabitant of Bethlehem, because they know, I didn't mean to click that, they know that when you see Ephrathite, that David's lineage is so important that they mention that inhabitant of Bethlehem. Now, I'm going to point something out for you guys. In the Hebrew language is very specific, family. The Hebrew language only has one word for Ephrati, which is H673. What does this mean? That when you see the word Ephrathite in scriptures, it is Ephrati. When you see the word Ephraimite in scriptures, it is Ephrati, because the Hebrew only sees H673. So what it appears, family, is that the English translators created two separate words to differentiate from an Ephrathite and an Ephraimite. Why did they do this? Perhaps because David's lineage has this secret Ephraimite tie, and that kind of thing, and they were kind of confused with that, right? Because you also see Samuel called an Ephraimite, but he operated as a prophet priest. We also see King Jeroboam as the king, referred to as an Ephrathite. And we're going to go through those scriptures, family, but I just want to show you guys that Ephrathite is a descendant, the number one usage, and an inhabitant or a descendant of Ephraim primary, right? So when you go into the text, you have to assume what it's telling you. That is an Ephrati or a descendant of Ephraim. This is what the Moroccans call themselves, right? Now, speaking of the Moroccans, I'm going to show you guys briefly why this is so important, right? The reason that we need to understand this very well, family, because a lot of African Americans, so-called, are descendants of the so-called lost tribes of Israel. When you hear lost tribes of Israel, we don't know what that means. Now, I showed y'all a clip in the beginning of the lesson where the Igbo said that the Igbo elder said, we've always been told from our grandparents that we are descendants from the lost tribes of Israel. Now, the lost tribes of Israel is a specific set of tribes. The lost tribes are the lost 10 Northern Kingdom tribes, right? So the Igbo elders, and I'm going to show y'all the Yoruba's oral tradition as well, they've always said that they are part of that house of Israel or that Northern Kingdom, those 10 tribes that were lost. Now, why were they lost? Because we know historically that the Assyrians conquered the 10 Northern Kingdom tribes first, and they were supposedly lost. Judah, that was conquered by Babylon, they returned back to the land because King Cyrus of the Medo-Persian Empire signed a decree because he was instructed by the Most High to allow the Jews, or Judah, those Judeans of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, to return and build their temple. So the 10 tribes were Hellenized, mixed in with the other nations, and supposedly lost. Now, historically, we know most of them went into Africa. This is where the Igbo get that from, and I'm going to read that Yoruba oral tradition. The B'nai Ephraim, or children of Ephraim, from Nigeria, live among the Yoruba. Their oral history tells that the B'nai Ephraim people came from Morocco after the Jews were banished from Spain. The Iberian Peninsula is actually Spain and Portugal, that entire continent, right? So when they were banished from that Iberian Peninsula in 1492, they went to Morocco and they kept going south and went to Nigeria. Now they did this because a lot of their family already was there and founded Nigeria. Nigeria was founded by the lost tribes of Israel. We know this through the anthropologist Derek Lang. Now, they speak a dialect that is a mixture of Moroccan Arabic, Yoruba, and Aramaic. This is the tongue that Yeshua would have spoken, right? They are known by the Yoruba people as the Imo Yokwayim, or strange people. And unlike other African Israelite communities in Nigeria, so there's a lot of them, family, the B'nai Ephraim have a Torah scroll portions that they keep in their sanctuaries, right? Now, it goes into why they settled and that kind of thing, but let's just deal with their claim that they came from Morocco. Were there Ephraimites in Morocco? Can we verify their oral tradition? Y'all have already known. We have Cambridge, Ulysses Santa Maria. This is a Cambridge source. We know that this Cambridge author, Ulysses Santa Maria, verifies this oral tradition. I'm going to try to pull that up for you. Okay, family, I'm going to put that up on the screen for y'all. I tried to scroll through the article, but I think they gave me access to the entire book. And I want to show you guys those specific pages where this Cambridge author talks about those Imo Yokwayim. I'm going to put that on the screen for you guys. Now, these Yoruba, they also say they came from Morocco, just like we saw on the other source. So there's multiple sources to verify this one online article that I'm finding, y'all. But this is not the only article that talks about these Ephraimites from Morocco that were banished, right? We also see on the Jewish Virtual Library website that it talks about, according to Judeo-African tradition, about these Ephraimite Refran city or civilization that was in Morocco, and is said to be the oldest Jewish settlement in Africa, and they claim that they are Ephrati. Right? Now they call themselves, the Hebrew word Ephrati, instead of Ephrathite or Ephraimite, they call themselves H673. And they say they come from the tribe of Ephraim. So that same Ephrati word that is used in 1 Samuel, this is what the Moroccan or the Nigerians that migrated from Morocco, this is who they call themselves, Ephrati, and that they are from the tribe of Ephraim. This is why this history is important, because that Ephrathite, Ephraimite lineage of David, they migrated into Africa, and these are the tribes where many African Americans so-called come from. So our history is hidden in this Josephite mystery of these so-called lost tribes. Now we also see on the Davidic dynasty that many of these Sephardic Iberian Jews, in fact, of the house of David, did go into Morocco. It says those related to the Al-Dahudi, we find after the expulsion from the Jews in Spain, we find them in Morocco. So y'all, there's so many sources about those Moroccan Moors. You might hear Moroccan short for Moors that ruled the earth. A lot of those Moors were Israelites by ethnicity. Some practiced Islam, some practiced Judaism, and they were chiefly in Morocco, and they migrated into west or southwest sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria. Now, why do I go through all this, family? I'll make sure I got all my sources. Also, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv Library talks about Ephraim, talks about the Ha'afrati, these Ephrati of the tribe of Ephraim, and this is Jerusalem Library. So, now back to the Strong's Concordance. So you see that these African Israelites call themselves Ephrati. The ones that were the Negro or the Moorish, the Moors that ruled, they call themselves Ephrati, which is the Hebrew word H673. There's only one word for Ephrathite and Ephraimite, it's H673. Somebody created two separate words, family. Now, we also see that on the Strong's website. I'm going to pull that up. We see Ephrati, descendant of Ephraim, also an inhabitant of Ephraim. It says also, right? So you had these Ephraimite descendants that lived within Bethlehem, Ephraim, right? Now that's where we're going to go into our Bible study, family. I just want to kind of connect our history as a people, being those lost tribes of Israel, right? And a lot of y'all have seen my DNA. Where I showed you guys that if you do your DNA, you're going to be E1B1A. These are these Nigerian, West African, Bantu Israelites. I also showed y'all that EL45 is E1B1A. I'm not going to go through that. I can do that on a different lesson. JED match. I want to show you guys something on JED match. How if you do your JED match admixtures, you're going to see North African. You're going to see Morocco, Algeria. This proves that our people were connected with these North Africans that we migrated from that region. Also, if you do another text, I think this is Ethiohelix. Ethiohelix shows Moroccan Jews. Y'all see that? So it's still in my DNA. These are my 20 chromosomal, I guess you could say percentages, that when they break down each chromosome, they can show you what percentage comes from this people group, what percentage comes from this people group. You still see the Moroccan Jews if you do your JED match. And most of all, my true ancestry. When you do your my true ancestry, family, if you haven't, you can just upload your 23andMe results. It's going to say Yoruba plus Al-Andalus. What is Al-Andalus? Iberia, which is the oral tradition of these Ephraimite Yoruba that came from Spain when they were banished, and they were Moors. They lived in Morocco, right? So that's just a quick review on that, family. That's why this is so important, because 65 to 70% of our people are going to match with the Yoruba, and they claim to be Ephraim, Northern Kingdom. Now, this is where the mystery of David's lineage comes in. I did want to also show you guys this Ephraimite Moors article I found that was brilliant. It says the majority of the Israelite tribes resided under the authority of the house of Joseph. So they're saying the majority of the Israelite tribes, 10 to be exact, were under Joseph, which was ruled by Ephraim. So if you fall under any of those 10 tribes, you're an Ephraimite or an Ephrathite, right? That doesn't mean you're specifically from the royal house. Now y'all see that out of 12 tribes, if 10 of them were Ephraim, the majority of us are tied to Joseph. Now, just prior to the expulsion of the Northern Kingdom in 722, Many Moorish Ephraimites of the house of Joseph were in Arabia. This is why those Moors got their family together. They were in Yemen, Ethiopia. Muhammad dealt with these Banu Qanaka, or Israelite tribes. Those were the ones that he united. They don't tell us that history. Islam was a unification of these Moorish Ephraimites. The later were known to have settled in Ethiopia before arriving to Medina. This is in Arabia. And they mixed with the Midianite Afars. This is where you get the two Afars from. Many of the Moorish Ephraimites continued westward into Morocco, Mauritania, and Mali. In North Africa, they became known as the Banu Ephraim, meaning the children of the tribe of Ephraim. This is where Africa gets that Afri. Land of Afri, or Africa. Ka is a Roman suffix for the people of. The continent of Africa is named after the people of Afri, are these Ephraimites. That's why this stuff is so important, family. Now, we're going to go into the scriptures. Y'all stay with me. I'm just kind of setting the stage for the history of our people being tied to these 10 lost tribes. Now, the Roman name Africa is derived from this. There are many variants. Ephraim, Wifraim. We saw that on the Jewish Virtual Library. Queen Kahina. I showed y'all the clip at the beginning of the video with the Nigerians having a city named after the Ephraimite princess, the Ephraimite queen. This is Kahina from North Africa. She fought against the Romans when they came to invade. Abraham Ha'afrati was the first Ephraimite king. In Mauritania and Mali, the Moorish Ephraimites were called Balfour, or the Balfour, like where you get Balfour Declaration. They knew Ephraim had a strong presence in the Holy Land, so the Balfour Declaration was to clear that land out. Britain signed it, and to give it to Lord Rothschild and those convert Ashkenazi Jews. That's just that quick history nugget. This classification included the Mande tribes, from where we get the Mandingo, who were known as the Malink and the Soninke. In 1311, the Emperor of Mali set sail across the Atlantic. This is going to get into the Americas, where you had a lot of Ephraimites over there. Your so-called natives, these Moors that were in the Americas. He had a vessel fleet and thus began the settlement of the house of Joseph in the Americas. Now, the Book of Mormon goes into, there were already families of Joseph around 600 BC at the fall of the Assyrian Empire, but this is just the Moorish migration into the continent. It goes into a lot of that history, family. It goes into some native tribes in the Americas. The Ephraimite Mandingo Moors were several tribes. The Mandan, the Natick Moors, so-called Native Americans, the Nanticoke. In this regard, a Moravian missionary visited the Nanticoke Nation on Maryland's eastern shore, and they were speaking Mandingo, which is West Africa. They were speaking that over in the Americas. Crispus Attucks was a Moorish Natick, right? That was killed in Boston Massacre. The Ephraimite Moors were also known as the original Black Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek, and Seminole Indians. That's the validity of the Book of Mormon. That's the validity of Native Americans being connected to Israel. They're connected through these Negro Moors, these Negro Israelites that migrated to that area. So Ephraim is in Africa, Ephraim's in the Americas. There's a lot of history of these 10 tribes, so-called lost tribes, being connected to the West African Negroes and the Negroes that were in the Americas. Now let's go to these scriptures, family, because I got to show you that the mystery of all this is tied into David's lineage. Now, let me see if I can pull my scriptures up. All right. Okay, here we go, family. So now this is a Tel Aviv University Department of Jewish History article. So this is credibility, family. They go into Rachel's tomb being in Bethlehem. She died on the way to Bethlehem, and her bones were buried in Bethlehem, family. So this is why you see clans of Ephraimites living in Bethlehem within Judah. So when you see the scriptures say, let me go to Micah, see if I can find Micah. Let me check my time, only 20 minutes, awesome. All right, so let me go to Micah. So when you see scriptures like Micah that says, but thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you be little among the thousands of Judah, Yet out of you is going to come forth the ruler. We know that Christ came out of Judah. But just because I live in Texas does not mean that I'm from Houston. I could be from Austin. I could be from Dallas. This is the region of Judah. We know that based on the context that it says, though you be little among the thousands of Judah. The thousands of what? The thousands of cities and provinces and small towns belonging to Judah. Now we know that Bethlehem was not given to the ethnic tribe of Judah, but was located within Judah. Now I know that's confusing, y'all. So think of Judah as a territory. Bethlehem was one of the cities within Judah. But were the people that lived there blood Judaized? Now I just showed y'all the Tel Aviv, Jerusalem Jewish History Department article that talks about Rachel's tomb, and I'm gonna go a little into that. How she died there, well, she died on the way to Bethlehem, but her bones were buried in Bethlehem. And it explains all the way down to the Iron Age when these clans of Ephraimites migrated to Judea or Judah. So think of Judah as a territory, family, in this context, that had a city called Bethlehem that was within Judah, but belonged to Ephraimites because their grandmother is Rachel, and she died and was buried in Bethlehem. So you see why Joshua, in Joshua chapter 15, let me see if I have that up. Well, I can just go ahead and pull it up. In Joshua, we see that Joshua did not give Bethlehem to the tribe of Judah. Now, in Joshua 15, every city and every town that belongs to Judah is listed. This then was the lot of the tribe of the children of Judah by their families, all the way down to the border of Edom. So Edom bordered Judah. This is where Amalek eventually merged with Judah, and you see Edomite kings like Herod and Pharisees, but I'm not going to get into that. So it lists every city and town that was given to Judah, and we do not see Bethlehem in its entirety. Family, I challenge you, read these scriptures. You will see Bethlehem is omitted, not by mistake, but Joshua, also the son of Nun, being an Ephraimite, he knew that his grandmother, Rachel, was buried in that territory. She was buried in Bethlehem. So even though Bethlehem was within Judah, it was not given to the ethnic tribe. That's very important when understanding the Levirate and understanding the book of Ruth. Now, we know this because when you look at Matthew chapter 2, we see that when Herod got pissed with the wise men, that he went and started slaying all of the children of Bethlehem to find Yeshua. In verse 18 it says, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and a great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted because her kids are not, they are dead. So if Leah is the mother of Judah, why is Rachel crying for these Bethlehem babies? This connects with Rachel died. We see that in Genesis 35. We see that Rachel died in Genesis 35. In verse 19, on the way to Bethlehem, her bones were set up as an altar in Bethlehem. We see that in so many places, but specifically I'm going to keep alluding to the Department of Jewish History, Tel Aviv University, right? So now we're going to go into the book of Ruth. Now that I kind of explained, Rachel died there. This is why Rachel was crying in Matthew 2. This is why you had that clan of Ephraimites in Bethlehem in the book of Ruth. This sets the stage for that family. And we already looked at Ephrathite being a variation of Ephraimite, a gentilic form of it. That means when the English writers were writing out the New Testament or the scriptures, they created two separate words, but it's the same meaning of Ephraimite, right? Now, let me try to pull up the book of Ruth and show you guys this mystery a little bit closer. Let's see. So, now family, if we go to the book of Ruth, we're going to see these things play out beautifully by the wisdom of the Most High. He concealed a lineage within a lineage. Alright. So in the book of Ruth, family, we see in Ruth chapter 1 verse 2 And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. Right? So some people think that Ephrathite just means a person that lives in Bethlehem, Judah. I already showed you guys. If I pull that up in the Strong's Concordance, I already showed you guys that Ephrathite is an inhabitant or descendant of Ephraim, right? So when we see this, we know, based on the history, based on the context, based on all the factors of Rachel dying in Bethlehem, when you consider all these things, family, it is most probable that the Strong's Concordance is right, family. That when it says Ephraimite, they know what was going on. You had Ephraimites that were not just in Bethlehem, Judah, but also had Ephraimites in Mount Ephraim and other places. So when you see Ephrathite being tied to a dweller of Bethlehem, Judah, this is an Ephraimite descendant also living in Bethlehem, Judah. You got to put all these puzzle pieces, all of these facts together, family. You had Ephraimites that lived in various locations. Now let me show you how I confirm that. The same author of the book of Ruth is Samuel, and the next book after that is his other book, 1 Samuel. We see that same word for Samuel. There was a certain man of Ramathazim Zophim, of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroam, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, and Ephrathite. Now this was an Ephrathite from Mount Ephraim. You also had Ephrathites from various locations. We see this word Ephrathite in 1 Kings chapter 11 as well, when it refers to King Jeroboam. Verse 26 it says, and Jeroboam the son of Nebat the Ephrathite. Most of us know Jeroboam was an Ephraimite. It does not say that. It uses Ephrathite. But we know Ephrathite means Ephraimite is how most people know he was an Ephraimite. But that same word, family, is the word used for Samuel. In 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 1, or his father Elkanah. And that same word is used for David in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 12. Let me pull that up for y'all. So in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 12 it says, now David was the son of Jesse, that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and had 8 sons. So David is Ephraite, Samuel was Ephraite, as well as King Jeroboam. That means a descendant of Ephraim. Also, you had Ephraimites within Bethlehem. So this David's lineage is those Ephraimites of Bethlehem, Judah. That connects that history. So when we go back to the book of Ruth, family, let me go back to it. When we go back to the book of Ruth, it breaks down this story of Elimelech. I am not arguing, family, that Boaz is not Judah. Boaz, we see in Ruth chapter 4, I'm going to show y'all that, his lineage is given going back to Pharez. That is a straw man. That has never been the argument. The argument is, according to the Levirate custom of the Levitical law of the Most High Yah in Torah, the duty of the kinsman redeemer was not to raise up his lineage or the name of his progenitors, but to raise up the deceased from the dead. The story of Ruth is about Elimelech having a wife named Naomi and 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Elimelech dies as well as his 2 sons, and these were Ephraimites that lived in Bethlehem, Judah. Now the nearest kinsman, let's go to chapter 4, the nearest kinsman was in fact Boaz. So perhaps, family, this is just my hypothesis of how they're connected with their different tribes. Perhaps Elimelech was an Ephraimite through his dad's lineage, but his mom perhaps was Judah and had a brother that was Boaz, because Judah was surrounding Bethlehem, because Bethlehem is a city within Judah. So it makes sense that they interacted with Judahite people and even married. But the Ephraimite lineage is preserved through the paternal lineage. That's how an Israelite is given their tribe. So perhaps Boaz is his uncle, his mother's brother. The Bible doesn't tell you that. This is just speculation to see and connect the dots of how he's from Judah and is the closest kinsman. Well, he wasn't the closest one, but he was the second closest kinsman to marry Ruth and raise up that lineage. So when you go to Ruth chapter 4, You see now, these are the generations of Pharez: Hezron, Ram, Aminadab, Nashon, Salmon, Boaz, Obed, Jesse, David, right? This is Boaz's lineage. Some of you all argue that this lineage of Boaz is actually the Levite itself, that this is the lineage of Elimelech. The problem with that, family, is the Bible clearly tells you Elimelech is an Ephraimite in Ruth chapter 1 verse 2. So this could not be referring to him, and the Bible does not say that, and the Bible expressly says that Salmon begat Boaz. That means this is Boaz's physical lineage, right? So if this is Boaz's lineage, according to the flesh, David and Yeshua are Judah, according to the flesh. But is that the end of the story? The moral is Boaz is raising up Elimelech the Ephraimite. So what's going on, family? So what's going on is spiritually and in the eyes of the Most High Yah, David is an Ephraimite, family, and physically he is also Judah. So he inherited the scepter of the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom, the two branches reunited, because in the eyes of the Most High, according to his word, David is his firstborn. David is an Ephraimite, son of Joseph, but at the same time, physically, he is Boaz, who is Judah, because Boaz was raising up the Ephraimite Elimelech, family. I hope y'all get that. Now, was Christ aware of this? I already showed y'all in Matthew chapter 2. We're going to go back to that. I already showed y'all in Matthew chapter 2 that Rachel was crying when the onslaught was happening to Bethlehem. So we know that Ephraimites in Bethlehem were still there during the time of Christ, because Rachel is crying and she's the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. Leah is the mother of Judah and his three older brothers, Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, right? Now, what else did Christ know? Let's see, does it get deeper? We're going to go to the book of John, family. Now, in the book of John, when we see the woman that was caught in the act of adultery, the Pharisees start ganging up on Christ and start making all these accusations against him. Now, they said to him in verse 19, "Where's your father?" And he said, "You don't know my father. If you had have known me, you would have known my father." Now, they're going to make this thing fleshly, y'all, and we're going to see something. Now, let's scroll down. And it says in verse 27, "They understood not that he spake of them of the Father, the Most High." Now, watch this, family. Now, let's get to the point where the Pharisees start kind of accusing. Now, Christ says, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," in verse 32. Verse 33, "We be Abraham's seed. We were never in bondage." Now, that shows you, how are they Abraham's seed, the Pharisees, and were never in bondage? Abraham had many sons. Esau was one of them. So these Pharisees, we learned through Josephus, are actually Edomites. Just like Herod was an Edomite, they weren't Israelites, but they were also descendants of Abraham, because Abraham had a son named Isaac who had two sons, Jacob and Esau. So they rightfully are Abraham's seed. They just didn't go through the Exodus and that captivity, because that was for Israel. Now, when we scroll down, they answered and said it to him in verse 39, "Abraham is our father." And Christ says, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works. You would do righteousness, right? And verse 41, they say, "Well, we be not born of fornication." What? I ain't going to go off into the virgin birth with that. But they were trying to slight Christ with that. Now, did Christ get offended? He said, if God was really your father. So he didn't try to combat what they were saying. Now, what else did they accuse Christ of? In verse 48, "Then answered the Jews and said unto him, Didn't we tell y'all that he was a Samaritan?" Wait a second. Samaria is the capital of Ephraim. Why are they calling Christ a Samaritan or an Ephraimite? And they said he has a devil. Didn't we tell y'all he was a Samaritan and has a devil? Christ says, I don't have a devil, but I honor my Father. Whoa! He did not deny being linked to Samaria. Christ knew the history of Bethlehem and those Bethlehem babies, that they were clans of Ephraim family that lived within Judah. This is David's pedigree, right? Now, so we see that in John. There's a lot of mysteries like that, family. We also see when Christ targeted the woman at the well, he went to the well given to Joseph and he sat on it. Now, this would have been a bold move during that time period for him to do that. Even the Samaritan woman is like, who do you think you are? Now that well was only the property of Joseph, Ephraim, and those related to them. So this Samaritan woman, she was a legitimate Samaritan Ephraimite. Now we know that Assyria and other captivities were placing fake Israelites in the land. But we know she had to be bona fide because she asked, "Are you greater than our father Jacob?" So these are just mysteries, family, to show you that Christ dealt with the Samaritans. He was accused of being a Samaritan. His people in Bethlehem were Ephraimites. Because Rachel was buried there in Genesis 35. So physically, family, YESHUA is Judah. But according to the Levite, the Most High sees him physically as Ephraim, because the purpose of Boaz was to raise up not himself, but Elimelech, right? Because Rachel died there, though Elimelech and his family moved there along with other Ephraimites, and that city was given to them by Joshua, an Ephraimite, because his grandmother was buried there, family. So I hope y'all got something out of that. I'm just making sure I'm kind of going through some precepts, misconceptions. So when we say that Christ came out of Judah, I am agreeing he came out of Judah, but his blood was linked to Ephraim through the Levite. Physically it was Judah, but according to the Most High, that physical lineage is not his true lineage, because Boaz is the kinsman redeemer, family. And I'm going to keep breaking this down from time to time, family. I hope y'all get it. We saw the Jewish History Department. He goes into this in detail. He connects why Samuel knew about David, because they were both Ephraimites. It's a great article, y'all. If you don't have a JSTOR account, get that. Y'all check out my Joseph Sold to the Four Corners, where I went into detail on the article. Let me make sure there's not anything else. Oh yeah, Jeremiah. For y'all that think that Matthew 2 quote was not talking about Rachel and Ephraim, I'm going to go to Jeremiah 31. And we're going to see that confirmed. So, we see in Jeremiah 31 verse 9 that the Most High will cause them to walk by rivers of water in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble. For he is a father to Israel, and Ephraim is his firstborn. So this is the Most High saying he's going to redeem Ephraim. Verse 10, hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the islands of the sea. He that scattered Israel will gather him. So this is Israel, house of Israel, talking about Ephraim. We saw that in the previous verse, right? And keep him as a shepherd doth. Now, we see this also mentioned, oh yeah, in the verse 8, I skipped that one. Behold, I will bring them from the north country. So the Most High is hinting that Ephraim will be in the north country. We know about the Moors that were over here. We also know about those brought over here during the transatlantic. So Ephraim will be scattered. A lot of people think Judah was the only tribe scattered. That is not scripture, family. And Judah that was scattered to the four corners of the earth is specifically talking about in 70 CE, when Rome conquered Judea, and all those Judeans were scattered. This is the region, those living in that border, y'all. So I hope that cleared that up. And if you scroll down in verse 15, it says, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, bitter weeping, Rachel crying for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are not. So family, this also confirms and just puts a nail in the coffin that quote from Matthew 2 is referring to Ephraim, because Ephraim is the context of Jeremiah 31. I can do a separate lesson just reading it verse by verse. It talks about the watchmen of Ephraim in verse 6. The whole chapter is about northern kingdom or Israel or Ephraim, right? And that is quoted in Matthew 2 when those Bethlehem babies are under attack. This is how you know that the babies that were related to Christ, this is Ephraim. These are Ephraimite babies in Bethlehem. So family, I just want to do a follow-up on that. I hope y'all took notes. If y'all have any comments or want me to clarify more things, go into the Strong Concordance, go into us being connected to Northern Kingdom, y'all just comment that down below. I showed y'all that we are Moroccan or Moorish, Yoruba, Ephraimites from that Sephardic family, the Yayas and that kind of thing. And I showed you how native tribes, certain ones like the Cherokee and the Choctaw, Chickasaw, this is why you might ask your grandparents, and they're linked to these Indian groups. They were Moorish Ephraimites that sailed before Christopher Columbus and came and settled what we call today the Americas. The first Jewish settlement in the Americas was in Brazil. A lot of them migrated to the North American region, And these were the original Black Cherokee Choctaw Chickasaw. So we are connected with them. So when you see people say blacks, natives, Latin American, that's those Brazilian, Native Moor, Yoruba, that family of Ephraimites that are all connected and make up the 10 so-called lost tribes. So family, I hope y'all got something out of this. Y'all search this stuff out for yourself. I just wanted to follow up after the whole Teotw Ministries thing. They're not dealing with the Levirate. They're not dealing with that kinsman redeemer aspect of the story. It's a slight disingenuousness of it. I'm going to reach out and see if maybe we can do a panel. I hate I missed the one they did, so we can kind of talk respectfully. And I can present this research and show them the Strong's Concordance. Show them the history of Rachel dying there. Show them that in Joshua, this city was not given to Judah. Show them that Rachel cried in Matthew 2 when the babies were getting killed, even though Leah is the mother of Judah. Y'all, it's too many precepts. But I hope y'all got something out of it. Y'all comment any questions and any topics you want me to clarify. I love you all with the love of the Messiah. I know this is a lot, family. The purpose of this is because there is a lot of truth, family, that other groups are bringing out. You see your Dane Callaways, and I know a lot of y'all feel some type of way, but you're not. A lot of you are jumping to your emotions and not hearing the conclusion of the thing. Let me explain it, and if you stick around, I'll clarify any confusion and any questions you have. There is a Native American connection. Dane Callaway's been doing this research. The Book of Mormon, the sealed portion, a lot of these plates, Big Judah, shout out to Big Judah, Elder Ayil, have been doing beautiful jobs on this. There were natives that are Moorish descendants. Now this isn't, even the Moors know this history because they say that Amexem, or North and South America, belonged to Morocco. So these Moors were going back and forth before Christopher Columbus, and scholars believe that Moors are the ones that navigated Christopher Columbus to the Americas because they were already making that sailing trip, family. So I know a lot of y'all don't like that, but the purpose of Zion Dynasty is to unify all of Israel. Wherever Israel went, I'm going after them. That's the purpose of this channel, family. And there is a lot of Northern Kingdom in the Americas. There are some in Africa, because these are 10 of the 12 tribes, family. Of course they're everywhere. This is the majority. If Judah is everywhere, we know the other 10 tribes within a massive amount of people. The purpose of Zion Dynasty is to find these folks. Find the 12 tribes of the greatest nation that has ever lived, family. And there's a lot of American element, Dane Callaway. And this is a way to unify all of the black power trains of thought. It can be done. The reason our people are Muslims in the Nation of Islam, this goes back, family, to the time of the Moors when some of them were Islamic. The Moors have this history of Ephrati. We also have the Khemitic element because they wrote and spake in Egyptian. Y'all, it connects all of these black power groups as one family, as the Israelites, through Joseph and the Northern Kingdom. So I hope y'all got something out of this. I know I've said it a couple of times, but I'm going to go ahead and sign off. If you have any questions, y'all comment. I love you all with the love of the Messiah. Peace, love, blessings, and Israelite power to all of you in the 12 tribes scattered. Shalom.